Hey everyone, it's DrRic. Today's tutorial is on the fasting mimicking diet. And Baltalongo released his book in the US last January. I was hot on the presses. I contacted him on Facebook back about the fall of 2017 because I started hearing and seeing some information on the data. Great data. If you are a fasting practitioner, or you've read Jason Fung's Obesity Code, I think there is value to fasting. And there are inflammatory markers that go down with fasting, and obviously people respond with weight loss, which is cool. But the data in here is so overwhelming. I mean, his information started with yeast cells, then it went on to mice. This is over the last, I think, 20 years. And then it went to applying the same information to pilot studies with humans. And all the data, every study that he's done, has shown positive improvement. So, what is it like? Again, if you follow this, I'm sure you feel good if you can maintain it. Unfortunately, most humans can't maintain. I have one patient out of my whole practice that continues on a 8-16 cycle of fasting. That's 8 hours of eating, feeding, and 16 hours of fasting, which is really tough. But God bless her, she's doing it. But most humans can't. In fact, if you think about just the basic caloric restriction is old school. Fasting technically is old school. It's ancient with many religions, but it just can't be maintained. During the certain part of the year, it is held to its standards, but it's hard to find the majority of the population to maintain that kind of lifestyle. Right now, keto is really up and rising way of eating. I see people that lose weight with keto, just like the fasting thing. I see people that are feeling better with keto. I just have to see the data, and that's where this is outstanding because of all the data. Now, you have to have NIH grants, and he's working with cancer. So I don't know we'll ever see keto. Hopefully we will. Walter Finney's done some good stuff. Jason Fung's done limited stuff. He's just extrapolating and giving a recipe. But here we have a recipe. Here we have data. If you read the book, which is a little bit dry because it has a lot of studies quoted, but whether you have MS, Crohn's disease, cancer, heart disease, there's benefits to this thing, and it's not just the 5 days of fast, but let's talk about the 5 days of fast. And by the way, I got my hands on the study. This is one of the studies that he published in Cell Metabolism, and because I've noticed online there's a lot of different interpretations for the fasting mimicking diet, but I will show it to you right here. This is it. I mean, I'm jumping straight to the gift at the end, but hopefully you can read that. That is your fasting mimicking diet. If you want to stop, pause, and take a picture or snapshot that. So as you will see, it is essentially 5 days. 5 days of fasting mimicking diet. And as in the study, there are a percentage of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates on the first day. The total kilocalorie on the first day is 1,090. And that's much less than an American diet. I think most American diets are about 3,000. I was looking at a bottle of Coke while I was waiting in line the other day, and the label said 65 grams of carbohydrates. I think, when did it go to 65? I mean, that technically is what you're supposed to have the whole day if you're a diabetic, at least my diabetics. And you have that Coke and you can't eat anything else? Impossible. You're going to be hungry, especially with the Coke. Anyway, I'm getting off track. So 1,090 kilocalories on the first day. The second day, 725. I might be, there are, and the breakdown on the first day, this is mostly plant-based, but on the breakdown it's 10% proteins, 56% fats, and 34% carbohydrates, mostly plant-based. On the second to the fifth days, it's 9% proteins, 44% fats, and 47% carbohydrates. I don't have that memorized yet. But still, the number is important. And again, it's mostly plant-based. That's what the studies have showed. I've seen some guys do their keto adaptive fasting mimicking diet, and I think that's reasonable if you are trying to maintain keto, but you're also doing FMD. I think it's reasonable to work within the numbers. Again, keeping the total kilocalories at about 1,000, and then on the first day, and then on the second to the fifth day, about 700 and a quarter, 725. So if you maintain that, you might get the benefits that are outlined in the studies. But again, if you're going to do it for 5 days, and one of the reasons why I did this 5 days, you wonder, why 5 days? Well, it was very hard, according to Longo, it was very hard to recruit doctors, cancer doctors, and cancer patients to do prolonged fasting. I mean, you're getting blasted, the patients are getting blasted already with terrible pain and suffering from the chemo to try to destroy the cancer cells. And the doctors don't feel comfortable without knowing data points about restricting feeding for their cancer patients. But again, he's found that, he's reproduced it. He's trying to get this to be a way of living for not just cancer, but for multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, heart disease, liver problems. So that'll bring me to what happens. So on the first to the fifth days, on the first days, the body senses that it's going through starvation. So usually what happens when the body senses starvation, it sends a message to all cells, there's a problem. So start cleaning up your act. The body, and most of us will go through it, and every cell knows how to do it, when there's decreased nutrient sources and fuel, there's a message that's sent to trigger most cells to go into apoptosis. Apoptosis is cell death. During that time, I like his story. He said he likens it to a train that's going from one town to another town, and it runs out of coal. And the train continues to go, otherwise it'll be stuck on the tracks, by burning the non-significant fuel sources on the train. Seats, wooden benches, fixtures. You keep on burning that to get to the second place, to get to your destination where you can refuel again and rebuild again. So that's essentially what happens with fasting mimicking. By the fifth day, the first day, the senses are their starvation. Messages get sent to the nuclei, and nuclei start to tidy up, get into a protective mode, and hopefully we'll make it through till we get to the next town. Cancer cells can't do that. Cancer cells have been programmed to accept anything as far as a fuel source. They love glucose and sugar. Some of them can do well with ketones, and that's why the theory of ketone practicing with cancer might be successful. But again, the data has to be there. But with the second to the fifth days of the fasting mimicking diet, you lower down to 725, which straight across the board, 725, it maintains the body at a minimal fuel to provide the body with its basic sources to keep the train going. But here's the beauty. And then again, there's the breakdown of the proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. The beauty is the 6th, 7th, and 8th day, because the refeed cycle, this is most important. The most important thing that happens is the refeed cycle. So you send the messages to the cells during the 1st to the 5th days, and that's just it. Fasting mimicking diet is 5 days. When the cells get that, the liver shrinks, the heart shrinks, if they're big especially. The cells start to go into apoptosis, bad cells start to decrease. Normal cells will protect themselves. Cancer cells get irritated. So what usually happens is that on the 6th day on, during the refeed phase, stem cells, those are the baby cells that can turn into anything. You have them in you. If you've ever had anybody with a knee or meniscus replacement, you'll hear about stem cell injections. That's prolotherapy. Stem cells injections now in orthopedics, where you inject the knee with your own body stem cells that are harvested, supposedly build up tissue that can't be regenerated anymore. And it does work. But the stem cell, and even when you expose somebody with leukemia to damaging radiation or chemotherapy, you want to put in a stem cell after the chemotherapy has wiped everything else out, like a bone marrow transplant. You want to put in the new cells to reproduce a new field, cancer-free or leukemia-free. That's how it usually works. In a nutshell, I just chopped it down, sort of summarized, oversimplified it, but just for this video. So the stem cells start up again, and they start on the 6th, 7th, and 8th day with a healthy diet. I mean, the studies by Boak, I think his name is, Marcus Boak, in Berlin showed fasting versus keto. And they did it for 6 months. They introduced a fasting for 7 days, not really fasting mimicking diet, but fasting for 7 days followed by a Mediterranean diet. And then they compared that to keto practitioners during the 6 months. And the keto practitioner, well, it wasn't really said what benefit the keto practitioners had, but comparing the two, they found a decrease in irritants and inflammatory markers in the 7-day fasters that follow the Mediterranean diet. And that's only 7 days, and that's over 6 months. So if you can have that kind of response by initiating a fast or starvation cue and having the body change over, go into defensive mode, and then after it goes into defensive mode, hopefully the cancer cells or the MS, multiple sclerosis cells, or the Crohn's disease antibodies that are attacking the small intestine, hopefully they will start to die. Because when you start to refeed stem cells, different than the bad guys, new stem cells produce better cells. They produce lymphocytes that don't attack, because they haven't been programmed to attack, like in MS, dendritic cells. They produce cells in the gut that don't attack the gut, like in Crohn's disease. They produce new cells. And they also help with producing different lymphocytes as far as those cells that are supposed to find cancer. Different lymphocytes that now can see the cancer in your body and then now can attack the cancer. That is why, in most cases, fasting mimicking diet plus chemotherapy, the two together, will increase your chances of survival with certain cancers. I'm sure across the board as the studies roll out all cancers. I mean, I learned this from him and then from Rick Bayless when I went to a conference a long time ago with Andy Weil, Integrative Medicine Center of Arizona. And one thing that seems to be so pervasive is that when you take away the happiness of eating and meal and sharing food from people, it's not sustainable. I remember Rick Bayless saying that before. All these big guys were telling us about, I think Andy said about what he thought, and then Keith Block, cancer doctor at Evanston, said what he thought, and then Rick Bayless came up and he said, you can't, no matter what, it's good to eat healthy, but you can't take away happiness. And again, Walter Longo said the same thing, and I think it resonated with me too. And that's why sustainability should be taken into account. And it's so easy. Now you have to suffer. It's a tough 5 days. Now, if you have cancer, I do it at least you have to get your approval from your oncologist. But again, there are ways that you have to have nutritionists help you if you're getting permission by your doctor if you have cancer. But there's also he's trying to get a box approach to fasting mimicking diet for cancer victims or cancer fighters to be approved by the FDA. I think. When you give somebody the ideas about 1,900 followed by 725, and that's it, you can kind of work within the framework. And I wanted to show you this because if you go on the internet, there's people that say 800 calories every day. I don't get it. They probably didn't read. So I showed you the evidence. That's what the protocol is. If you follow the protocol as best as you can, then cool. You don't have to buy the box. So again, the box for chemo is being put together and studied. Before it's released to the general public, it's going to have to go through human trials and FDA approval. There is something called Prolon. I'll be doing an unboxing for that. Prolon also is the FMD in a box. So it makes it, I think when you present cancer fighters, patients with, you have to do this, and you have to do this. This on the first day, this on the 4 days. It leaves you up to your own defenses and your own ideas. If you have a registered dietitian, great, or a nutritionist, great. But sometimes when you put it into a box, and I saw somebody on YouTube bastardize the box, saying there's a whole bunch of crap in it. But the idea is when you put something into a box, then it resonates with this drug treatment mentality that we have in the U.S. I mean, if the doctor gives you this, and you have to take this pill every day, it seems easy and you can control your disease with this pill, when actually you should be working on lifestyle. But I think we're based on that mentality here. So sometimes to make this more appealing, if you take the Prolon box and you do that, you got your package for the first day and the package for the second to the 5th day. It seems easy, it seems doable, and you can see the end point. And you can see that you're having something that was given to you, although it's a little pricey. I'm going to see if I can sell them for my patients at least, at a more affordable price. But you see an endpoint, you see a little package, it's kind of exciting, you mix it up, you're doing something, you're involved. And again, it touches on that mentality we have that you get something as far as a prescription and you keep on doing it. So higher sustainability. So the studies were on FMD, followed by a mostly whole food plant-based diet. I think he mentioned pescatarians, okay, for the refeed phase. So if you're going to do this and then go back to eating and drinking 12-pack every weekend and eating crappy food, don't do it. I really think that you should try to use a healthy diet to fight your fight. If you're just doing it for weight loss, that's fine too. I mean, the data point that says visceral fat gets plugged out first, and how can you not want that? If the data says that during the fasting mimicking diet and then the refeed phase, that the visceral fat is the source of fuel for every part of the body, that's the only thing that I have seen where you can really logistically pull out fat from this instead of this. You see that when people go through fasting diets that they look really gaunt, and they still have a tummy because they're losing protein and fat all over. Well, the studies have shown that the data point says that visceral fat is used as a fuel source preferred over peripheral fat. So, I mean, if you can target right here, why not? So it just gives great guidelines to this. In addition to, I mean, the visceral fat's nice to lose because it's so hard. I'm not sure that the keto state will do the same, but the studies, the thinking is that it does do that. And I have nothing against keto, but it's just a little bit hard for me to continue on knowing that the cholesterol might drop, might increase because you're doing so much animal fat. So just be careful. I think that my guys that are doing keto, continue on. But think about injecting the fasting mimicking diet into your keto. Or when you get tired of a keto, if you get tired of keto, we'll reset this thing and see how your markers of inflammation go. That's the other thing. If you're going to involve yourself in this, just like work of Dean Ornish, I think you have to have markers done first. So if you have good insurance and its deductible's not too bad, you might want to have some blood tests done. So I like CRP, sedimentation rate, sometimes ferritin. There's other hemoglobin A1C, other markers, if your blood insurance will pay for the blood, to be done before starting off. Because if you're not noticing any improvement in energy or weight, waistline, or total weight, or that if you're MS sufferer or Crohn's disease sufferer, if you're not noticing improvements, then at least you can take a picture again after you've attempted 3 cycles, 5 days every month for 3 months. And then you can see if at least the numbers show improvement. If the numbers show improvement, do it again. I mean, again, it's 5 days per month. That's 5 days out of 30 that you can benefit from just doing this. Now, if you follow it to the T, God bless you. If you can just kind of wing it and go with the 1090 and then the 725 on the 2nd to the 5th days, do the best you can. Don't forget, the refeed phase is very important. If you're not sure what to do with refeed, please see a registered dietitian or nutritionist to guide you on what to do after that. Healthy diet is what's suggested. And again, that information I said earlier about the Marcus's study was 7 days of fast and essentially a Mediterranean diet. Mediterranean diet includes fish, meat, wine. So I just can't overdose on it. And so I think if you just choose this as your source of healing up, whether you're trying to fight cancer or whether you're just trying to live to 100. Obviously, live to 100 in Okinawa is different than living to 100 in the United States. Here, living to 100, you're in a nursing home and you're not really remembering anything. Living to 100 in Okinawa or Costa Rica or Loma Linda, you're really involved, and that would be ideal. So you give back to the community, you see and give your wisdom to the younger ones. So give it a try. Hopefully this does give you a little bit of guidance. I will be doing the Prolon unboxing soon. I wanted to do it, I wanted to try it myself, but I'm on a 6-month hiatus. I'm not actually a vegan at this point in time. I want to get markers at the end of 6 months to see if my internal organs and my inflammation markers have responded from just being vegan. But I can't wait to try this. I don't want to do 2 things at the same time because it'll be hard to figure out which gave me benefit. So hopefully if you have any benefits or any experience with your fasting mimicking diet, please let me know, whether it's weight, waistline, BMI, or just an overall feeling of wellness again. I'd like to hear about it. Don't forget to subscribe to me by hitting the subscribe button and the alert button, and please send this out because I think other people are going to start, the FMD or fasting mimicking diet is going to be starting to gain a lot of traction, and I think it's so easy.